Okay, here we are. Good morning. Have my coffee. Still waking up. That's okay. It's a good Friday night. So it's a lazy, relaxing Saturday morning. Happy Labor Day weekend. This mug is from Tromsø, Norway, the farthest north on the planet I have ever been. There you go. It's beautiful. The sun set at 3 p.m. when I was there in October. Ooh, was it last October? Yeah, it was last October. That was super fun, super exciting. So good times in the great north of Norway, saw some killer whales and all that good stuff. So here, oh yes, dating in the Me Too era has been interesting, to say the least. Someone asked what a cishet woman was. So that's abbreviated for cisgendered. So I was assigned female at birth, and I identify as female, and heterosexual. So I prefer sexual relationships with men, right? So cisgendered, heterosexual, cishet woman. So just to be clear on all of the things, my preferred pronouns are she and her. And it has been interesting dating after all of the Me Too movement has, come forward and done a lot of good, I think. I wanted to talk about how, 3 different men in a row, went on a few dates with this guy, went on a few dates with the other guy, and then the third. Each of them said something unprompted, we weren't talking about the Me Too movement or anything. They just impromptu said, I don't know how to date. I'm not sure how to treat you. I don't know. I didn't let you know where I was. Hold on, please hold. I'm still figuring this out. Please have patience. That's why none of you were here, because you didn't know where I was. Or you don't care. That's fine. You got other things to do on a Saturday morning. I totally get it. So without prompting, they each expressed some sort of hesitation or not fear, but anxiety, I think would be a good word. An anxiety of dating. Well, not of dating. An anxiety related to the interaction they were having with me as a woman in the Me Too era. Coffee does the body good. But in a row, it was weird. It called my attention. I was like, okay, this is a thing, and this is something, because while there is a lot to be said, obviously, about the Me Too movement, how important it is to feel safe in, a work environment, or to not be harassed on the street or at a club or in a bar. Those are all obviously no-brainers to many women who've experienced such behaviors, specifically from men. But to have who I assume are men who did not engage in those types of behaviors, who did not coerce anyone below their rank for any sexual favors in order for them to keep their job, who did not sexually assault anyone on a date. I think that their concern and their anxiety was super interesting. And I think that what I'm impressed with is the cognizance that they had that was, where are my boundaries? I don't want to overstep them. I certainly don't want to offend you, Leah. But almost too cautious, almost, it's hard to describe. They were just separately, the one guy, I was like, oh, that's interesting that you're aware, right? That's a thing that I found it interesting that he was aware. That's a whole nother chapter in sociology. I find it interesting that you're aware of the Me Too movement and your behaviors right now and how you should be ensuring that there is consent and that consent is communicated and all of these things. But it was almost paralyzing for him. Like that should, as long as body language is a thing, right? 80% of what we say is communicated through body language or whatever statistic that is. So if I'm not running away, it's just, I appreciate the cognizance. I think there's something to be said about overthinking, but also not understanding fully. So I think this also speaks to a lack of full awareness from, let's say, just from my perspective, from what I may have experienced in the past as far as unwanted attention, right? So if I'm out with you and I've agreed to meet with you somewhere in a public place and we are having a discussion and we are talking and we are having a good time and I am laughing and you are laughing and this is fun, chances are I'm not feeling threatened. Chances are that is me engaging with you and we should continue engaging with each other and yada yada. But it seemed to me, and this might be my own thing, that in the backs of their minds, they were anxious, like they were like unsure and not, what is, am I allowed to touch her shoulder? Am I allowed to, graze her hand? Am I allowed to, and it's like, yeah, I mean, is it really that awkward to not want to be sexually harassed? Like, is there such a fine line between normal engagement with another person and if you're not careful, it's sexual harassment? Like, I feel like that's not a very fine line to walk. I feel like it's pretty obvious one from the other. Mutual consensual engagements and like flirting and whatever versus I'm groping you. Like I don't know. It's just so interesting. And so these, like, I appreciate that these men are aware, right? Like they are thinking about it. That is awesome because that's a big step, right? That they're considering their own behavior. And it's just been interesting to see how the default is, it's almost like they've internalized to themselves, I'm the bad guy, and so I have to be very careful. And that's not what the Me Too movement is about. Obviously. Obvious to me, right? I guess obvious to many who have experienced these sorts of experiences in life that we are told, there's messaging that we get as children, right? Boys will be boys. They can't control themselves. And girls have to be the ones who are not dressing provocatively so as not to invite, right? It's all bullshit, obviously. It's all bullshit. I say obviously because it's obvious to me, but it's all BS. And we should not engage in those sort of mentalities, yet that is ingrained, at least it was in me. It was ingrained in me that boys can't help themselves, and sometimes they just touch you in private areas while you're sleeping. That's just how things like that. No, that is not just how things, right? Eric, so after this great time you're having, he kisses you goodnight without asking, is that okay with you? So, and that is a great question, because, and what you may have missed because I forgot to post the link and I was talking and nobody was here. So there's something about body language, right? And so that body language is a very effective way of communicating, and we don't really even think about that when we're communicating. It's the difference of having a conversation with somebody over the phone versus in person. In person, you get all of that extra body language communication. And so at the end of the night, I'm on a date with a guy, right? At the end of the night, if I'm looking in his eyes and moving in closer, like that's an invitation, right? Like I think it's a little awkward to say, you may kiss me now. Like, you have my full consent to kiss me. But what is communicated is still there. That is what is being communicated non-verbally. And you know what? If the guy's not sure, ask. I do. I ask, is it okay if I kiss you? I do that. Men can do that. That's totally acceptable. That's like awesome. Bonus points for that. If it's not obvious, if you're concerned that you might not be reading the signals, or if you're concerned, like, it's the same for women. We do that, or at least I do. I don't know. I think that human beings in general do. If we're not sure we're reading the signals, or, we think so, but we just want to make sure, right? Because that's a good thing. Ask. Be forthright. I mean, as adults, we should be able to talk to each other about these things. So to answer your question, generally, yes, it is okay with me, unless I'm giving signals like, I need this date to be over. I'm going to be over here getting my keys in the door. Okay, bye, it was fun. Like, I think that that's a little obvious that I'm not going to be engaging in the kiss goodnight this evening with said person. Caitlin, I honestly don't think it's awkward at all to ask to kiss someone, or to ask someone to kiss you, but then I come from Antioch's SOPP policy. I don't know what SOPP policy is. But yes, it's actually nice and refreshing when we reject the suppressive and oppressive sexuality that our Puritan heritage has bestowed upon us in this great Victorian nation that still can't talk about sex. It is refreshing for someone to be open and honest and straightforward and say, I find you very attractive. Would you like to come back to my place? That sounds like a great idea. Or, hey, you know what? I like that idea. I can't tonight, but let's plan for another time. Like, all of these iterations can happen, and you can actually talk about having the sex or having the kiss or whatever. Like, you can have these discussions. It's okay. No one's going to spontaneously combust. Sexual offense prevention policy. Excellent. Yeah. And I assume, because I don't know that specific in-depth, the Antioch's sexual offense prevention policy, by note, by the letter. But what that sounds like to me is, the more open and communicative you are, the less chance of miscommunication and the less chance of sexual faux pas / assault / unwanted advances and that sort of thing. So yeah, we're not taught that. Like, we are not, the parenting versus school, the sex ed and the da-da-da-da-da. Sex ed is 5 minutes. Sex ed is penis erect, vagina becomes moist, penis and vagina, ejaculation, sperm goes to egg, baby, pregnancy, birth, whatever. Like, that's the biology. The biology part of sex ed is 5 minutes, but we spend all of this time and money talking about it. Is healthy relationships, healthy interpersonal connections, healthy sexuality, knowing your body, knowing how to express pleasures and displeasures, what being attracted to people is like, whether it be people of the same gender, different genders, all of that needs to be discussed in sort of a healthy sexuality class. I think I would very much enjoy that being in schools. Would I be as receptive to hear it from my parents? Probably not, just because of where the teenage mind is and developing and the whole rebellion thing. Would I be receptive to hear it from my cool aunt? Yeah. My cool aunt could talk to me about it. I'd be like, oh, right. Okay, great. Good to know. Thanks for the advice. That's awesome and very much more useful than this is sperm and this is an egg and then they get fertilized and da-da-da-da. So Caitlin says there's a mandatory training for all students at Antioch College. Oh, great. At every stage of a sexual encounter, affirmative consent was required. 0 sexual assaults during her time there. 0. That's impressive. That is quite amazing. And I did not have any sort of required class or otherwise, either in high school or college or med school, right? Like, all of these steps could have been helpful for many people. I went to the University of Michigan, and there was sexual assault on campus. That happened. It happened in frat houses. It happened in the athletic department. It happened in everywhere, right? Like, it wasn't so, like, I'm making it sound common. What I mean to say is that nowhere was sacred or safe from a possibility of sexual assault. And you, as a female college student, I was aware of that. I didn't necessarily know anything about preventing it, but I took appropriate measures. I always had people with me. I didn't go to someone I didn't know's house alone, and I didn't walk around late at night because of the faux stranger in the bushes that might jump out and assault me, which, of course, we know statistically that is not really what you should be concerned about. You should be concerned about your intimate partner more than anything. And being aware that communication is super important there. Again, where this communication and sexual health would be so beneficial for our youth. Eric, so spontaneous affection is dead. Does spontaneity carry more meaning? So spontaneous affection is dead. Doesn't spontaneity carry more meaning? Yeah, and again, I think that what you might be hearing is, it is now time for us to have a kiss. Now it is time for us to hug. No, that's not what I'm saying. And I don't think that's what anybody is saying. I think what we're saying is, you communicate through body language, which is, I'm sure, what you've experienced, and that's still okay. And if you're reading from someone that they're into you moving in for the kiss, yeah, all right. However, if you're unsure, as you lean in, you can be like, mind if I kiss you? And that can be sexy cool. You can make affirmative consent sexy, actually. Inherently it is, I think, to many women. I'm just going to make that blatant statement with no evidence whatsoever. I think it is, actually, to me anyway, affirmative consent can be sexy cool and is sexy cool. I much appreciate it. And that doesn't mean spontaneity is dead. That just means the spontaneity is clear. There is no question about what's happening, and everybody involved is consenting to what's happening. And spontaneity is still there. You're reading the other person just as you normally would. All I'm saying is that you're probably, again, if there's doubt, you're going to want to just check in. And I'm going to want to check in if there's doubt. I don't consider myself 100% awesome at reading people. So when there's doubt, I check in. And again, you can make it fun and enticing. But yeah, so these men in unprompted in 3 separate occasions are like, well, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to offend you. I don't want to, overstep my bounds because, the Me Too movement and everything. And I was like, wait, what? Like, we were just talking about our favorite places to hang out, and now we're talking about the Me Too movement. Okay, what just happened? And it's been super interesting to see their cognizance. And again, I appreciate the cognizance. I'm concerned about the anxiety it's causing. I mean, not overly concerned, but it called my attention that there might be anxiety here that shouldn't be. But can that happen, or can the anxiety be avoided while still having the cognizance? I don't know. I'm not a sociologist. I kind of wish I were at this point, because it's fascinating to me, the reactions that on these like first dates, like we're in a public place having a drink, either a coffee or a beer or something, and all of a sudden we're talking about the Me Too movement. I'm just kind of like, okay, let me assuage your fears here, because as long as you have no intention of hurting me, I think we're going to be okay. But again, reaffirming to them, I definitely made sure about your own place and your own behaviors and how that might be affecting me. I appreciate that. That is awesome. So I want to encourage that cognizance. Definitely encourage that cognizance, because that's a huge part of the Me Too movement. Making sure that people are aware of their own behaviors and how they might be, or they can also pat themselves on the back that they're not contributing to a culture of sexual assault and misogyny. Men are on the defensive, not a good thing for it's true, not a good thing for a new relationship. I get it. And that's why I'm doing this thing, because it's come to my attention that men are on the defensive. And I'm not so concerned about that, to be honest. I mean, I think I don't know that anybody should be on the defensive, but historically speaking, we're always on the defensive. And by we, I mean just kind of generally in women. We are vulnerable in certain ways. I mean, physically we can be, right? That's just biology. That's just gender dimorphism. That's men's bone structure and muscular structure are different from women's bone structure and muscular structure. Not saying that women cannot be stronger than men. That is not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, generally speaking, there can be and historically has been a vulnerability of women in the context of men. Broad generalization, right? I'm a feminist. I hope you all know that. There are physical attributes that I, for example, I know men that I can overpower, but I also know men that I can't. So, physically, I can mentally overpower any of them. Just kidding. So the men are on the defensive. That's what I was picking up. And that's what I found very interesting. And I don't want anybody to necessarily be on the defensive, but I think that a time for men to be on the defensive a little bit, to kind of step back and slow down their roll, check in, make sure that what they are doing and saying isn't offensive, isn't misogynistic, isn't, alarming. I think that that's okay. I think that's good. I think that that's allowed, that that's permitted. And until we find this ability to communicate with one another, and by that I mean men among men as well, there's a huge need for men to check themselves. Hey man, I know you're trying to be funny, but that is kind of a rapey joke, and that's probably not okay to think that way. And no, it's not okay that you treated your girlfriend that way. And no, it's not okay that you're saying these things and I'm offended by those things. And what, that needs to happen too. And I think it is, but it needs to happen more. Until we have a culture where women are valued, where from childhood, where little girls are given equal opportunities, valued as equally as boys, and educated equally as boys, we're going to still have these problems, these cultural issues of assault and bad things happening, and the Me Too movement, and one gender or the other being on the defensive. Like, we should all be able to be human beings and value each other equally. That's not the case right now. So I'm okay with men being a little bit on the defensive for a little while. I think it's healthy. It's a healthy check. And it just needs to happen for a little bit. And again, with these, men I went out with, I appreciated that they were checking in, that they were like, hey, so I'm feeling a little awkward because I'd like to touch your hand, but this Me Too movement, and I don't know. And in my head, I'm kind of laughing, like that's kind of silly. But what I say and what I mean is, that's awesome that you're thinking about it. Like, I'm glad that you're thinking about it, that you're cognizant, and that you're not just ignoring what we've been screaming from the rooftops for centuries, which is, we just want to be treated as you would be treated yourself, the golden rule. Doesn't a woman feel unattractive if a new date just leaves at the door? Why risk a kiss? The stakes are high for misinterpreting body language. Again, that's why you would want to ask. I don't feel unattractive if someone just leaves at the door. That's a lot of interpersonal things, right? So we all have anxieties about different aspects of ourselves. And if I'm out with a guy and it's the end of the evening and we just wave at each other and we go separate ways, I don't feel unattractive because I feel good about my attractiveness. I do feel that we didn't mesh in some way. Sorry, my dog is distracting me. I don't know what he's getting into over there. I do feel that we just didn't mesh, that like there was no chemistry. That's totally a thing. I mean, I know very quickly if I have chemistry with somebody, so I'll probably know very quickly how a date will end. But it has nothing to do with my sense of my own attractiveness. It shouldn't anyway. And that's not the case for everybody, but that's just me. Yeah, there are plenty of times I've opted out of the end of date kiss because I didn't want to, because I wasn't attracted to the person. So why would I kiss someone I'm not attracted to? I don't plan on seeing again romantically. I may run into them and say, hey, whatever, but that's miscommunication. Historically, it might have been considered, well, the right thing to do because he did buy you that drink, and so you should just give him a kiss anyway. Like, no. That's where all sorts of things get messed up. That whole idea of catering to the male ego, if you will. That's a fallacy for both men and women. Men should be able to recognize if there's no chemistry, it's done. Even if they bought their date the drink, nothing is owed. I do things for people. I don't expect anything back in return. That's called kindness. And so if you're approaching a date in that way, if you're approaching a date like, I'm going to pick up the check and therefore I'm going to get laid, there's a lot of other things going on there that need to be unpacked and undone and rethought, right? And that's not what I'm saying you're saying. I'm just saying, like, there's a historical element of that messaging, and we need to get out of that messaging, especially women, because I think there is a lot of that still in the dating scene, particularly among women, where we feel guilty if we go out with a guy and he's really nice and he bought dinner and maybe we should just kiss him goodnight because that was nice for him to do. And no, that was nice for him to do, but if you don't want to kiss him because you're not attracted to him, then you shouldn't kiss him, period, the end. You say, thank you, I had a lovely time, I don't think we have a chemistry, and maybe we'll run into each other later, but it just didn't work, and that happens, and that's life, and it's okay. So it's been reassuring that men are paying attention, right? That these specific individuals were actually thinking and contemplating, and they wanted guidance. They asked specifically, so what's a guy to do? I get that. I totally get that. A guy is to do what a girl would do, like what a woman would do. It's no different. You would read signals and try not to be a jerk. Like be a good human. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be a good human. It's really quite simple. Again, it goes all of this, like, sort of the messaging that happens gets in my brain, and I wonder, is this something to do with you're not a man unless you sleep with like 100 women, and so therefore you just got to go do, I don't know. Is that really a thing anymore? Maybe it is. I'm not sure. Again, not a sociologist. But what if we all just lived by the golden rule? What if we all just said what we felt? And what if, I was out with this man the other night and I just was like, you know what? Yeah, you're attractive. I think we should go out again. Why is that like hard? It's not hard. We should be able to just say those things. And likewise for him, he should be able to say, you know what? You're attractive. I think I'd like to see you again. What if we just told people how we're feeling instead of tried to play mind games with each other? What if we did that? What if we were just not brutally honest, not in a malicious way, but in it behooves me and benefits you for me to tell you that while I think you're a nice person, I'm not attracted to you. The pheromones just aren't there. What are you going to do? You can't help it. It's just not there. Be well. I wish you all the best. Why can't we do that? Why can't we just interact with each other on a human level? If this is what that person were feeling, I would want to know, and so therefore I'm going to act accordingly. Like, life is very golden rule-esque. Like, any situation you're in, if you apply the golden rule, it sounds super cheesy, but this is literally how I live my life. If you just think to yourself for a second, if I were in their shoes, or if they, how would I want me to say this to, yeah. And then that's how an interaction can go more smoothly, I think. I think just, Eric says, I think just shaking hands after a date may be what this all comes down to. Sad but true, I think. I don't agree there. I don't think that that's what this all comes down to. I think that there's Eric, I feel like you might be reacting as an overly cautious, and that's fine. That's great. I would hate to have you generalize in every interaction, this is how it's going to end up. This is what is going to happen, because you're an individual, and your individuality interacting with another individual is going to be very different from any other given interaction with any other given individual, right? There should be times where it's obvious one way or the other. This person definitely wants a kiss. This person does not want a kiss. Like, and again, for those cases that it's not clear, you just ask. It's not, I don't think it's a default to a handshake situation. I don't feel that at all. I feel like it's good to be aware, and maybe it's a matter of exercising that body language reading, and maybe it's an exercise of verbalizing that body language reading. For example, you're out with somebody. Like I was out with somebody, and we were at the bar, and I could tell he was wanting to like touch my hand or something. So I moved in closer, and that was me giving him permission to do that without actually saying, yes, you may touch my hand. So those are types that, like, we do that, I think, as human beings. We naturally do those types of things. Now, if I didn't want him to touch my hand, I would have moved away. That is legit what I would have done. And legit, I'm sure, or I hope, that he would have read that. And then we would have each finished our beers and said, good night, and left separately. And that's okay. But that cue that I was reading from him was, I'm not sure, I would like to, I don't know. And so I reciprocated with, I am giving you permission, here I am moving closer, and this is okay. We had a kiss at the end of the night. We did not shake hands. Like it, and that was because of a communication that we had, verbally or body language or otherwise. And granted, you know, I'm in my 30s. This was not me in my 20s. Me in my 20s dating, very different, very, like, a lot more insecure, a lot more anxieties, right? Because you don't know yourself in your 20s. I don't think I really knew myself until mid 30s, right? Which is totally where I am. I'm actually in early 30s. I haven't hit my, just kidding. So, you know, there's that too. There's like the age of where you are and the stage of development you're in as a person. And I think that we're always changing, and I think that that's good that we're always changing. But just being aware and kind of applying that, again, that golden rule, like, I don't know, I would like to kiss this woman, but I don't know if she wants me to kiss her. I'm not sure about the body language. I don't know what I'm reading. Mind if I kiss you now? Perfectly acceptable. And she might mind, and she might say, I do mind, no thank you. And then at least you know. And then it's like, for whatever reason, it doesn't mean you're any less of a man or there's something wrong with you. Like, literally, I would say, in my experience, 99% of the time, it has nothing to do with that individual, and it has everything to do with, like, the chemistry between me and that individual. And that can't be helped. That's not, there's nothing inherently, like, wrong, you know, one eyebrow's higher than the other. It's not that. There's nothing like that going on. Or our philosophies are different. Like, that's a thing. And maybe it just doesn't jive with me. Maybe I don't like the way that you think about cheese. I don't know. Like, any sort of thing can be it, but it doesn't mean that the man as a person or the woman as a person has anything wrong with them. It's just that whatever they've got going on, whoever they are, doesn't mesh with whoever the other person is. We're not going to mesh with everybody. Everyone isn't meant to mesh with everybody else. Eric says, separating thought from emotion may be impossible. Romance is mostly emotion, or it's a business meeting. Yeah, I don't know that I see what you're saying on that last sentence. Romance is mostly emotion, or it's a business meeting. No. I see what you're saying, because you're interpreting, I think, the discussion, right? It's either emotion or it sounds like it's a business meeting. Thought and emotion do go hand in hand, of course, because emotions come from the same area of the body as thoughts, so they're very much intertwined. I don't really know how to address that. I think that it's sort of like, you know how someone can be super attractive and then they say something that is really offensive or really ridiculous, or you're just kind of like face palming, and their attractiveness just goes out the window. Like before they open their mouths, it was like super hot, super attractive person. Then they opened their mouths and whatever came out, and you were just like, that's unfortunate. Now you're not so attractive. It's kind of, I mean, anybody's attractiveness is a combination of things. It's not just emotion. It's not just thought. Anybody's interpersonal relationship or relating with somebody is not just thought. It's not just emotion. It's not just pheromones. It's a combination of all of these things. And so just communicating that and being aware of that, I think, is all that really needs to happen. I have been going on for 40 minutes. This is ridiculous. Does anybody else have any questions about dating in the Me Too era? I would like to encourage everyone to leave comments and say, this was great, or I wish you would hit on this, or maybe next time you can talk about this. Open to suggestions. I am not the end all be all of anything, but I think that it's interesting to have these topics and these discussions. And this just like 2 days ago hit me, like, what is going on? This is a pattern I'm seeing, so I wanted to talk to you all about it. And I'm sure that will happen again as life does. So do subscribe, please, and there will be more videos to come. I will be doing some videos on reproductive health propaganda, how to pick apart the lies from the truth, from the facts, from the fiction. Thanks, Eric. I will see you on Twitter as always. And thank you, Caitlin, for educating me on the sexual offense prevention policy. I think every institution, including high school, possibly middle school, I don't know, it's not too young to say, don't hurt each other. Till next time, bye.